let's think about puppies instead of, I think that would be an easier topic, healing puppies. Damien had the reading and I said, good luck, it's pretty thick. I think he did a beautiful job. The ongoing message this month has been this concept, this idea of these, that we're rooted in the divine. And today's talk is the final conclusion of some of the topics that we've discussed, as Mary talked about the will of God last week, and we talked about the personal and the impersonal aspect of the divine. And now, this actually, the title of this talk is The Self-Evident Truth Within You. And I kind of simplified it to just say truth, and then when I realized what I needed to talk about, I sort of went blank. Still was blank yesterday. Still was blank at 6 o'clock last night. So I thought, why is this? And it's because every time I tried to find the truth, the passages kept telling me, the truth reveals the truth. Thank you very much. What does that mean? And the truth will set you free. Oh, thank you. What is that, capital T, truth? What is it? And then it goes on in all the things that I kept picking up. It cannot be explained. Well, great. Great. Please just don't listen to me today, okay? Go home and live the truth. It'll set you free. Got it? So, but we're rooted in the divine, and I took that glossary definition, I took it and kind of spaced it out a little bit. And Damien, you did a beautiful job, because it's in the space between the words that we get the truth, right? It's not so much what I'm saying, it's what stirs inside of you, what wakes up inside of you, and what you decide to do with that truth. Does it set you free? Does your personal spiritual truth set you free? Let me just start there. Because if you feel bound by your principles, by your way, by your thinking, by your perceptions, you're not free. And that is not the deep spiritual truth living in you as you. You are set by principles and perceptions that have trapped you. So I start there, and I remind you in the dictionary it talks about truth as being accurate, authentic. There's a certainty to it, there's factual information around it, there's principle, there's correctness, exactness, there's facts, there's a genuineness, there's gospel. It is infallible, it is the nitty-gritty, it is the perfection, the rightness, the trueness. And so as I share some of my thoughts about this, I invite you to just allow your own mind to just open. When I walked in today, before I hit the door, I heard the flute music, and I got really excited because I appreciate Joey's instrument of the divine. Did he know what he was doing several years ago when he started playing around with this wood? He taught himself. Little by little, he taught himself. And he allowed the wind of the divine, the prana, the life force of the divine, to flow through him as him, and to create notes that put together, that touch your heart, because they come through his heart into ours. And I thought, that is truth. As simple as that, that's what truth is. Being the divine instrument and allowing the divine to play through you as you, for what is before you in the moment. To find an article, as Reverend Mary did, on the pets, and to remind us there is some suffering in the world. And do you have something in your nature that can relieve that suffering? Do you have a way and a means inside of you to make a difference? So as we discuss the truth, I want you to keep thinking, what is my truth, and the deep truth, the big capital T, and how does my ideas of truth align with that? Has my way of being in the world brought wholeness or separation? What have I been doing? What have I been allowing my mind to be saturated with that continues to bind me and hold me in a place of separation? What? What keeps me from my truth? Because the greatest idea when you know you're in a place of truth is when you're inclusive, absolutely inclusive. Where your heart burst open for the puppy, for the person suffering in their choice of their lifestyle, we stay open, we embrace, we are inclusive, we are welcoming. We invite all of that into our heart space and hold it with the sacred duty of the divine. I love you. I love this. It is the truth. This, I am not separate from you, as Mary's beautiful prayer, we are one. What does that really mean when we are one? If we are one, we cannot curse that which is around us. We rise above that part of the ego and the mundane part of our nature, the personality part of our nature, the part of our nature that's been impressed upon again and again by our upbringing and by our values and by our morals, not always bad, but we're still formed like clay sculptures around all that. And within that there is a light of truth, big capital T truth, which is always loving and spreading that grace. Now, I listened to a small talk from Sadhguru, who is this beautiful Hindu man that has this beautiful wispy white beard, and he wears this beautiful garb, and he speaks with comical, quick wisdom, and he reminds us that there is a litmus test. If there is any suffering in you, if there's any suffering in you at all, that's the litmus test. That means you're not in truth. Open the doors to truth. Slowly become more inclusive to what is. If you accept what is there right now, you are inclusive. So we're moving from being exclusive to the idea of truth, having to do something very deep and profound with being inclusive. What is the source of my creation is the question of great depth. If tears float, this is his talk to his people, because somebody came up and just, asked that question, dumps that big giant question on you. What's the source of my creation? His words, he said, that is a huge question. Now, if tears float inside of you when you ask that question, and I know you're yearning to know that answer, if it brings up such an emotion, such a passion, such a longing for the divine, then you really want to know. You can't ask just in a quick curiosity, what's the ultimate truth of God? You have to know the depth. And it's the pain, he says, of ignorance that tears at you. Life, he said, if you're asking it just on a whim, life has not touched you deep enough. And I sat with that. Life has not touched you deep enough. Because when I first was looking at this talk, I was thinking about telling the truth. That's easy, to stand behind telling the truth. We could talk about that for hours. There's much in principle about telling the truth, but truth itself, being revealed to each of us, it always is there. It's ever present. It's what love does. It flows through us. It should take us to our knees in the knowing of that. Has life touched you deep enough to want to know? If you want to penetrate and go beyond, you must create a longing to know the blissfulness of actually knowing the answer to what is my source. You really want to know then. It can be done, but it cannot be said. What does that mean? Again, it has to be felt. When we recognize and we align our mental knowing, this beautiful mind that we have been gifted with by the divine, when we align that as an instrument of truth with our heart knowing, and we radiate a sense of feeling behind that, so be it. So be it in our world, and love flows through us as us, but it's the big love. It's not the conditional love. It's that agape love. That just as, again, Mary's prayer said it all. As we look at the stars or we look at the sun and we see light in fragments and stars in the wholeness of the day, we see the light and the light fills us and we become instruments of that truth. And then we rise and we are empowered and we are ambassadors of that truth. And we walk in the light of that knowing, and we don't have to proselytize anything at all. We just are. And people think, I want to be near you. I want to be with you. There's something in you. Yeah, it's called love. I've been touched by the divine. I know the ultimate truth. Join me in that knowing. How? Sit with me. Sit with me and let us just be. Oh, and breathe. That's it. That's what love is. Confusion, he goes on to say, means you're looking. Confusion means you keep looking and you're trying to make conclusions. You're only perceiving truth. You see, you're standing outside of it. We can only know truth when we allow it just to wash through us and allow us to be. There's I always like to share these Anthony DeMello stories because he talks about the truth shop. And I've shared this one before, but from a different point of view, I share it again. I could hardly believe my eyes when I saw the name of the shop, the truth shop. The salesman was very polite. What kind of truth did I wish to purchase? Partial or whole? Oh, the whole truth, of course. No deceptions for me, no defenses, no rationalizations. I wanted my truth plain and unadulterated. She waved me on to another side of the store. The salesman there pointed to the price tag. The price is very high, sir. Well, what is it? I asked, determined to get the whole truth no matter what it cost. Your security, sir. My security? I came away with a heavy heart. I still need the safety of my unquestioned beliefs. The truth shop. Are we willing to let go of ideas that have kept us bound in a certain dogma? The question is only for you to answer. It comes from deep inside, and when you find the answer, you'll weep. You'll weep with an acknowledgement of surrender, of that deep surrender. As Mary said last week, thy will be done. What is that? It is when we allow that God nature, those qualities of the divine, to unadulterated, they flow through us just so pure. It just is that which we respond with no fear at all. It's a beautiful moment when we allow thy will be done. The divine be done by me, through me, as Joey's notes play through and fill these halls with the note of the divine. We let it fall upon us, and touch ourselves, and awaken us. It's as easy as that. So there's what we're bound with, another little story from Naomi Remen. She's a doctor, and she wrote this really great book, My Grandfather's Blessings. And she's speaking, he's from a Jewish background, upbringing, and they're talking about the presence of God. And this story struck me because this is where we can see it's never too late to let go of that which has bound us by principle, by what we thought was so right and made us righteous in that knowing. So she says, my grandfather and I had many discussions about the teachings and principles of Judaism, but I can remember only one disagreement, only one. It had to do with the nature of the minyan. The idea of the minyan is central to the spiritual life of Jewish people. While anyone can pray at any time, Before an official prayer service can be held, there must be at least 10 men present. This group of 10 men is called a minyan. Why, Grandpa? I asked, puzzled. Patiently, he explained the law to me. It is believed that whenever 10 adult men are gathered together in the name of God, God himself is actually present in the room with them. Eminent, my grandfather said. Any room then became consecrated ground, a holy place where the sacraments of religion could be performed. So, after 5,000 years of persecution and homelessness, nothing can be taken for granted. Holy ground had to be portable. I was fascinated by this. My grandfather told me that this law was so important that often men were called from their homes to come to the synagogue because there were fewer than 10 present to pray for the dead, inscribe a baby to the book of life, or conduct one of the many rituals that is acknowledged that life is holy and bound people to God. Once or twice in Russia, he had even gone out on the street and collared a passing Jew, a total stranger, to complete the circle of 10 men. One did not refuse such an invitation, said my grandfather. It was considered to be the duty. But why only men, Grandpa? I asked, and he hesitated. The law says 10 men, he responded slowly, and I waited for further explanation, but he said nothing. Well, isn't God present when 10 women gather? I asked. Thinking back on it, I imagine this must have been a very difficult moment for him, and he says, the law says nothing about this, my dear. It has always been 10 men, since the beginning. I was astounded. If something is old, does it have to be true? Certainly not, he responded. Well, then I think that God is there in a room when 10 women gather too, I said flatly, and he nodded. That is not what the law says, he told me. We had never disagreed about anything before, and I was shaken, but my grandfather seemed quite comfortable with the distance between our beliefs. He never discussed the matter again, and I thought that he had forgotten it. A few years later, he became very sick, and in those months before he died, I was allowed to visit him only briefly so as not to tire him. I was almost 7 years old and terribly proud of my reading, so I could read to him from one of his books, so we'd simply sit quietly together. Sometimes I would hold his hand while he slept. Once after a nap, he opened his eyes and looked at me lovingly for a while. You are a minyan, all by yourself, my dear one. That's what he told her. So he burst through thousands of years of belief to release it and to let his daughter know she was on the right track. And she grew up to be a profound teacher. If you have not studied anything from Rachel Naomi Remen, it's a treasure. It's a treasure. So that struck me. You see, that was truth. Truth bound, truth that set you free. Can you feel the difference? When you're bound by principle, bound by the idea it takes 10. And sometimes the black and white can be so confining to us, so painful, so restrictive. And the invitation is always, as Ernest Holmes says in one of our favorite books here, stay open at the top. Stay open at the top. Who would Ernest Holmes be today? That's often discussed in spiritual circles. Who would he be today? Who would be his teachers today? How would he have evolved? I think he'd be just so tickled pink how quantum physics has continued to emerge as a philosophy and as a truth that aligns science with the holy teachings. And so we keep watching our world evolve. And as we watch our world and our thinking and the concepts evolve, so are we. And so we stay open at the top and we become these divine instruments of truth. So just quickly, I'm going to share with you another teacher of mine that I like to study is Carolyn Mays. And I'm scared to death of her. I've been at conferences with her, and I duck and bow when she's going to ask somebody in the audience to come up and be an example of something because she can be brutal. And so I'm afraid of her personality, but her wisdom is penetrating to me. And she speaks of truth, and she says first, She has discerned these truths in her experience, and she says miracles are real. And do you believe that in your world, that miracles are real? She said, don't expect a miracle to do something that you could be doing for yourself. She said, miracles are not for cowards, but they are for the brave and the courageous people who are filled with the unrelenting faith in the divine possibilities. Those are the miracles. She goes on to say, kindness and patience matter all the time. All the time. Kindness and patience. And we know our suffering begins the moment we drop that and we say unskillful words to one another, to those that we love. We disappoint ourselves so much more than we've disappointed the other when we lose our kindness and our patience. Believing, I like this, believing that you are extraordinary or that your kids are is an unnecessary suffering in life. There she goes. Doing something extraordinary for others, now that's worthy. Stop searching for God for purpose and for meaning. Stop searching. The divine works behind the scenes, not in front of the camera. Look for something special in each day, something new. We shared this in the Sages group yesterday. As we mature, we get sort of caught in our routines, and we forget to do new, wonderful things in a day. And little by little, we're surprised when things that we used to be able to accomplish, we can't do anymore. Well, hello, you're not moving your instrument to try to even do that. I was talking about when I lost my hop, how I was just grounded when I tried to do hopscotch. I thought, when did that leave? Well, when did I last use it? Of course it's not going to be there. So what are you not trying to keep renewed and impassioned in your life? I know a man in his 80s that loves to skip boulders. He goes out into the woods to jump from boulder to boulder. Now that would horrify a lot of elders, but he said it keeps me in shape. It keeps my balance. 80 years old, jumping the boulders out there in our mountains, trying something new and refreshing what you once did long ago. Look for something special in each day. Look for something new. Put your life force into something that is useful. I watch too much television, and it takes my life force. And so often in that anguish of watching and zoning out on TV, I think, I've got to stop this. It's taking my life force. There's so much new things I can be doing, so much, the storms are in the air, and I could be out there in the elements, but I'm staring at TV until I fall asleep. I thought, what's that? Why did I become one of them? Get up, get out of here. And so there's this calling of my soul. The soul knows the truth, and it's going to set me free if I listen. Dedicate your life to a good cause. All along the way, take time to pray. Feed your inner life. Do things that enrich your soul. Practice joy, love, charity, compassion, understanding, and healing. Can you see Carolyn Mace's wisdom leading you to the idea of truth will set you free? And finally, she says, live a bold life. Live a bold life. Now, if I say that and some of you start to shrivel down, me? Yes, you, all of us. Everyone that enters these halls, this sanctuary is large so that we can expand our consciousness as large and beyond these walls out into our community to do something bold, to really stand up to that idea of what is my truth that is so all-inclusive, that love pours out of my heart into all those I encounter. So let's just hold it there, because I finally got it. The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. Join me in a knowing as I take you with me in that boldness of knowing that when we breathe and we plant ourselves into the nobility of this human body that we were given in this lifetime, and we allow ourselves, each and every one of us, to be connected to the divine in such a way that we each feel that we are an individual light of the one light. And as we radiate that light in bold assuredness that love prevails, and that we recognize patience and kindness is what leads our way. The truth sets us free, and we're no longer bound by moments of feeling inadequate or small or insecure, but we rise up to our true nature, which is divine, which is the truth, which is freedom, which is light, which is love, which is truth, which is beauty, which is joy, which is happiness and abundance, and all that the divine has offered flows through us as us. We're set free, the truth. The truth can only be revealed by truth. So thank you, God, for the willingness for each one of us here to just sit with the question and to weep with the answer, as it stirs our own heart as only truth can. I release this in gratitude for the wisdom of the teachers that continue to point to the way so that we become whole and inclusive at all times. Thank you, God, for that profound love. So be it, and so it is. Thank you.